Welcome to our deep dive. We're taking a look at a classic today, but with a modern spin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got some excerpts from like a new version of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
You know, that Dale Carnegie book?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to see how all those old school principles hold up in our digital world.
I love that.
Yeah, it's all about making real connections online, building trust, and yeah, even, figuring out how to use your influence in a positive way.
I mean, that's a big question. Like, how do you, translate those ideas to a world where everything's online?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. The thing that really struck me when I started reading was, you know how the book compares Hitler and Martin Luther King Jr.?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It argues that they both, wanted to influence people, but their methods, their whole approach was totally different.
Right. One was about manipulation and the other was about leading through, morality and ethics.
Exactly. And it makes you realize just how much responsibility comes with influence, especially now with social media and everything.
It's true. Everyone's got a platform now.
Yeah, like every post, every tweet, it can build someone up or you completely tear them down.
It's like we all have these digital megaphones amplifying every word. You really got to be mindful of the impact you're having.
And the book has some pretty crazy examples of what can happen when people don't use that influence responsibly.
Oh, like what?
There's this case of a doctor, Dr. Patrick Nesbitt, who ended up getting fined like $40,000 for stuff he said about his daughter's mom on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's this soccer player, Ryan Babel. He got fined 10,000 pounds for tweeting like a Photoshop picture of a referee after a game.
Oof. Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want online. There are real consequences.
Exactly. It's like our words online have just as much weight as our actions in real life.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure our digital interactions are actually positive and productive,
Well, the book talks about this concept of burying your boomerangs.
Burying your boomerangs.
Basically, it means avoiding criticism and negativity in your online communication.
Okay, so why boomerangs?
Well, think about it. You throw a boomerang out there, and it can come right back and hit you. Same with negative comments online. Once they're out there, it's hard to control the damage they can do.
I see. It's like that story about Abraham Lincoln, right?
Oh, yeah, with General Meade. Lincoln was so furious after a battle that he wrote this really scathing letter.
Oh, he never sent it.
Thankfully not. Imagine if that letter had gone viral in today's world.
It's a good reminder that sometimes holding back, especially when you're angry, can be the best course of action.
Absolutely. And the book says that those who really earn respect are the people who can state their views clearly, but still show compassion for people they disagree with.
It's such a tough balance to strike, though, right? Conviction and empathy, especially online where everyone seems so quick to jump down each other's throats.
Well, it reminds me of that story about G.K. Chesterton, the writer. The Times asked him to write about what was wrong with the world.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
His response was brilliant. He just wrote, "Dear sirs, I am, sincerely, G.K. Chesterton."
That's amazing.
Right. It shows so much humility.
It's like he's saying, hey, I'm not perfect either. It's refreshing,
Totally. Especially online where everyone tries to seem perfect all the time. Acknowledging your own flaws, it just makes you more relatable, more trustworthy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So honesty and being real are important. But what about, compliments and stuff? There's like a right way and a wrong way to do that online.
Definitely. The book actually makes a distinction between flattery and affirmation.
Ooh. Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference?
So flattery is like you're just saying what you think people want to hear. It's surface level, But affirmation, that comes from a place of really understanding someone, recognizing what's important to them.
It's like that story about Muhammad Ali and the kid who wanted to quit boxing.
Oh, yeah.
Ali didn't just offer empty platitudes. He connected with the kid's struggles and encouraged him to keep going.
Exactly. It's about meeting people where they are and understanding their values and desires. Then you can connect with them on that deeper level.
It's not just about saying nice things. It's about really seeing the person.
That's it. And that actually leads to another big idea in the book, shifting from a self-centered monologue to a real dialogue. We often get so caught up in our own thoughts and opinions that we forget to listen to what others have to say.
It's true. It's so easy to just broadcast your own stuff online without really engaging in a back and forth.
Right. The book is all about being present in the conversation, really listening to the other person's perspective and making sure they feel heard and respected.
I love that story about the U.S. Secretary of Education.
Oh, the one where he went into classrooms and talked with teachers directly.
Yeah. He was able to revitalize his whole department just by listening to the people on the front lines.
It's amazing how much you can accomplish when you actually listen to what people need instead of just assuming you know best.
It makes you wonder how many problems we could solve if we all just, listened more and talked less.
I know, right? Speaking of listening, the book also talks about the power of remembering names, even online. It might seem like a small detail, but it can make a huge difference.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. Remembering names is not my strong suit, especially with so many people online.
I get it. Our brains are overloaded with information these days. But remembering someone's name, it shows them you actually see them as an individual.
You're not just treating them like another username.
Exactly. And the book uses Saddleback Leather Co. as an example. They've built this amazing loyal following by focusing on personalized customer relationships.
So they actually remember people's names, even online.
They do. They send handwritten notes. They engage with people on a personal level. They really go above and beyond.
Wow, so even in our fast-paced digital world, taking that extra moment to remember a name can make a big impact.
Huge. And there's actually a story about Napoleon III. Can you believe it?
Napoleon III, what did he do?
He had this whole method for remembering names. He'd repeat the name during a conversation, try to connect it with the person's face, even write it down later and visualize it.
That's some serious dedication.
Yeah.
But I guess if someone as busy as Napoleon III thought it was important, there's got to be something to it.
It shows that remembering names takes effort, but it's worth it if you want to build strong connections, even online. So we've talked about avoiding negativity, showing real interest, remembering names. What else can we learn from this book about navigating the digital world?
Well, one of the most interesting ideas is about leaving a positive impact on everyone you interact with online. The book calls it leaving others a little better than you found them.
I love that.
It's a beautiful concept, right?
Yeah.
Even a small act of kindness online can have a ripple effect.
And there's this great story in the book about a New York City cab driver.
Oh, yeah.
It was Halloween night, super busy, and he went way out of his way to help this couple find a restaurant.
Wow, he didn't have to do that.
Nope. But he went above and beyond. And it just shows that even a small interaction can brighten someone's day and have a lasting impact.
Absolutely. It's not just about big gestures. It's about those little moments of connection that can make all the difference. And this applies in the business world too, right?
For sure. There's an example in the book about a sales manager at Macy's who told his team to focus on making customers' days better instead of just pushing sales.
Did it work?
It was a huge success. Happier employees and happier customers. It was a win-win.
That's amazing. It shows that when you focus on genuine connection, everyone benefits. But let's be real. Sometimes our reasons for building relationships online, they don't always align with what the other person wants.
True. We might be focused on achieving a big goal, like launching a project or building a community, but the people we're interacting with, they have their own needs and experiences.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we make sure that our digital interactions are actually meaningful for everyone involved?
Well, that's a great question. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll talk about specific strategies for building trust and influence, using more examples and insights from this updated version of Dale Carnegie's classic. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into winning friends and influencing people online. Last time we talked about making a positive impact with our digital interactions, but how do you actually build lasting relationships online?
Well, a big thing is learning how to avoid arguments, especially online where things can get heated so quickly.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like everyone's ready to jump in and fight over every little thing.
Right. But the book says that instead of trying to win every argument, you should try to find common ground and approach disagreements with, some empathy.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that there's a real person on the other side of the screen.
Exactly. It's like that story about Reverend Billy Graham.
What did he do?
He was known for building relationships with people who had totally different views than him.
How did he manage that?
He focused on their shared values, finding those things they could connect on as human beings instead of getting stuck in their ideological differences.
That's such a good reminder that it's more important to build bridges than walls, especially online.
Totally. And another thing that helps build trust is being willing to admit when you're wrong. We all have flaws and weaknesses. Pretending to be perfect online just makes you seem less trustworthy.
It's true. Social media can feel like this highlight reel where everyone's just showing their best selves. It's hard to relate to that.
Right. We're only seeing a tiny slice of their lives. But when you're willing to show your own vulnerabilities, it gives others permission to do the same.
Makes you more human. The book talks about Tony Hayward, the CEO of BP, during that oil spill.
Oh yeah, the Deepwater Horizon.
He got a lot of criticism for how he handled that whole thing, especially his lack of empathy.
It's a tough situation to be in, for sure.
And looking back, he admitted that he could have done things differently. He could have shown more compassion for the people affected by the spill.
Even in the digital age where everything feels so permanent, admitting your mistakes and taking responsibility can really help rebuild trust.
It's like you're saying, hey, I messed up, but I'm learning from it.
Yeah,
And that's an important message to send online.
absolutely. And it goes along with another principle the book talks about, starting interactions in a friendly way, even when you're dealing with tough topics.
So set the tone right from the beginning.
Exactly. Be respectful and considerate even if you don't agree with the person. There's a great example about John Maxwell, the leadership expert.
What did he do?
He had to lead this church where one member was known for being really difficult.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but instead of confronting him directly, Maxwell made a point of just being friendly. He showed him kindness and respect.
And what happened?
It totally changed the dynamic. The guy calmed down and they were able to have a productive conversation.
Wow. It really shows that approaching difficult situations with a friendly attitude can make a huge difference. Sometimes a little kindness can go a long way.
Definitely. And that brings us to another important strategy for building connections online, accessing affinity.
Accessing affinity, what's that?
It basically means finding those points of connection you have with people online, even before you really know them. You might follow the same accounts or belong to the same groups or share similar interests.
It's like social media gives you these little clues about what you have in common with someone.
Exactly. The book says you should use those clues to build rapport, find those areas of agreement, and connect more authentically.
Kind of like when Microsoft launched Windows 7.
Oh, I remember that.
They knew they had to win back users who weren't happy with Vista.
Right, so they listened to feedback and focused on addressing people's concerns.
Exactly. By acknowledging their past mistakes and finding that common ground, they were able to rebuild trust and create a much better experience for everyone. So it's about listening and understanding people's needs.
Exactly. Which leads to another great principle, ask questions instead of giving orders.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's so easy to just tell people what to do, especially online.
Right. It can feel very bossy.
But when you ask questions, it shows that you value the other person's input. It invites them into a conversation rather than dictating the terms.
Makes them feel heard and respected.
Totally. There's this story about Captain Abrashoff, who took command of the USS Benfold, a ship known for having low morale.
What did he do?
Instead of just barking orders, he interviewed every single crew member and asked for their ideas on how to improve things.
He actually listened to them.
He did, and by empowering them to take ownership, he turned the whole ship around. It became a much more positive and productive environment.
That's amazing. It shows that asking questions and really listening can unlock so much creativity and innovation.
And it applies online too. Asking for feedback, involving people in decisions, it can make a huge difference in how they feel about your project or your brand.
So we've talked about asking questions, finding common ground, being authentic. But what happens when things go wrong? How do you handle mistakes, especially online where everything feels so permanent?
Well, the book emphasizes the importance of mitigating fault and magnifying improvement.
Okay, so instead of blaming people when they mess up.
Exactly. Focus on understanding the situation, offering support, and helping them learn from the experience. There's a story about a media executive who launched a magazine that totally flopped.
Oh, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, but instead of firing her, the CEO actually praised her for her courage and skill. He acknowledged that the decision to launch the magazine was a shared one.
He didn't throw her under the bus?
Nope. He created a culture where people felt safe taking risks and learning from their mistakes. It's so important, especially in a fast-paced environment like digital media.
Absolutely. And it goes along with another principle, giving others a fine reputation to live up to. So you're expressing confidence in people's abilities and encouraging them to be their best.
Exactly. The book tells this great story about a bellman at a hotel, Wallace, who was known for giving exceptional customer service.
What was so special about him?
He had such a positive reputation that guests would go out of their way to interact with him and share their experiences online. People loved him.
That's amazing.
It shows that when you treat people with respect and acknowledge their strengths, they're more likely to rise to the occasion. And it's something we can all do, both online and offline.
It's about setting a positive tone and believing in people.
Yes. And it's about staying connected on common ground, which can be tough in the digital age.
Especially with all the echo chambers and filter bubbles online.
Yeah.
It's easy to just surround yourself with people who agree with you.
Right. But it's so important to make an effort to engage with people who have different viewpoints, listen to their perspectives, and find those areas of commonality. The book uses Richard Branson as an example.
Oh yeah, the Virgin guy.
Yep. He believes that staying connected with customers, even online, is super important for success. It's not just about blasting out marketing messages.
It's about having real conversations.
Exactly. Building relationships, not just transactions.
It all comes back to empathy.
It does. And in today's world, where we're bombarded with information and opinions, it's easy to lose sight of the human element.
You can start to feel disconnected from the people you're interacting with online.
But the book argues that empathy is more important than ever. It's about putting yourself in other people's shoes, understanding their perspective, and responding with compassion.
It's like that story about Armando Galarraga in Jim Joyce.
The baseball game.
Yeah, the umpire made a bad call that robbed Galarraga of a perfect game.
Oh, that was heartbreaking.
But instead of getting angry, Joyce owned up to his mistake and apologized.
It was such a powerful display of empathy. It went beyond the game itself. And I think those moments of empathy, even in small ways, can make a world of difference in our digital interactions.
So we've talked about asking questions, giving people a good reputation to live up to, being empathetic. I'm curious, what other insights does this book offer? Are there any unexpected strategies for connecting with people online?
Oh, definitely. In part 3, we'll explore some even more intriguing concepts from the book, things like appealing to noble motives, throwing down a challenge, and the power of sharing your journey. So stay tuned, we've got a lot more to cover.
Welcome back to our deep dive. It's amazing how these principles from how to win friends and influence people still hold up in our digital world.
It really is. I mean, human nature doesn't change all that much, does it?
No, I guess not. We still want to connect with people, feel valued, make a difference. And the next principle we're going to talk about really taps into that desire to do good. It's called appealing to noble motives.
Ooh, interesting. So what's that all about?
Well, it's recognizing that people want to be helpful, they want to support causes they believe in.
Right, like that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you help someone out.
Exactly. And the book says that when we tap into that desire, we can really inspire people to take action.
So instead of telling people what to do, you appeal to their better nature.
Exactly. There's this great example about Lord Northcliffe. He wanted to stop a newspaper from using a picture of him that he didn't like.
Oh, how'd he do that?
Well, instead of just demanding they stop, he appealed to their respect for motherhood. He mentioned that his own mother really disliked the picture.
Wow, that's clever.
Right. He found a way to align his request with their values. And the book has a more modern example too, this time in the digital world.
Oh, let me guess. It's about using social media for good.
You got it. It's about Amy Martin during the Japanese tsunami back in 2011.
Oh, wow, that was devastating.
She was watching the news and she was frustrated by the lack of helpful information. So what did she do? She went on Twitter. But instead of complaining, she appealed to people's desire to help.
She asked them to share practical info that could actually help people affected by the tsunami.
Yes, and it worked. People responded, they started sharing useful information, and it shows how you can influence positive change online just by tapping in to that human desire to make a difference.
That's so inspiring. But what about when you need to motivate someone to, step outside their comfort zone?
Well, that's where the principle of throwing down a challenge comes in. It's about inspiring people to reach for something they might not think they can achieve.
Kind of like pushing them to be their best selves?
Exactly. Like that story about Teddy Roosevelt. His dad challenged him to make his body when he was a sickly kid.
And that's what set him on the path to becoming such a strong and active president.
Yep. Sometimes a challenge is all it takes to light a fire under someone. And there are so many ways to do that online.
Oh, like what?
Well, the book talks about Sean King, this pastor who wanted to raise money for orphans in Haiti. He came up with this amazing idea to auction off celebrity Twitter follows and retweets.
Whoa, that's a great idea.
Right. It was creative, it got people's attention, and it raised a ton of money for a good cause. It shows the power of a good challenge, especially online.
I love that. But sometimes the best way to connect with people is just to be yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Let them see your real self, the good and the bad. The book calls it sharing your journey.
So being authentic and vulnerable, even online.
Exactly. It's so tempting to only show your perfect side online, but that doesn't really build genuine connections.
Right. It can feel fake and inauthentic.
The book tells a story about a woman who used email to connect with other people going through cancer treatment. By sharing her experiences, both the highs and the lows, she created this amazing support system.
Wow, that's powerful. It shows that even in tough times, sharing your story can connect you with others and give you strength.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into how to win friends and influence people in the digital age, I think it all comes down to recognizing that even though technology has changed how we communicate, the fundamentals of human interaction remain the same.
We still crave connection, respect, and the chance to make a positive impact.
And this book, even though it was written so long ago, gives us a roadmap for navigating the digital world in a way that builds those genuine connections.
It's a reminder that every interaction online is a choice. You can choose to build people up or tear them down.
Exactly. So as you go about your day online, ask yourself, what kind of digital footprint am I leaving behind? Am I adding to the negativity, or am I making the world a little bit brighter?
I think that's a great question for all of us to consider.
I agree. And I hope that this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and tools for making the digital world a more positive and connected place.